My name is John Tlakas. This is the third time I've hosted these candidates. I started back in 2010, and then 14, and now 18. So it's an interesting thing that we try to do here at IU, so that everybody gets an idea who your candidates are. Before you walk into the voting booth, I think it's a good idea for you to get an idea who you're voting for. So that's what I'm a retired policeman, and I've always believed that that's how things should work, so you have a good idea what you're doing. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves because they're going to spend some time talking a little bit about themselves. But the other thing is, if you have any questions that you want to submit, we have some cards and pens back there. So if you need an index card, just let us know. And there's a young man with a blue shirt on that will pick up those questions. Plus, they'll give you, if you need a blank card to fill in all the questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my MC, Jerry Davich, from the Post-Tribune, right? Is that good enough? Okay.
This one?
So I don't want to let him out of here. So. Okay. All right. So with that, then let Kim just start.
If you see either of them, like really red, like
All right, can we hear me okay? We good? So my name is Jerry Davich. Thanks to everyone coming tonight. I appreciate your time, and especially all the candidates. Every one of them showed up, which surprises me from the get-go, so I'm very appreciative of that. We can definitely get started. I want to also thank Indiana University Northwest and all the sponsors here and all the hosts. And also, I know there's some IUN students here also, so they're here for a class, over here for sure. Feel free to ask questions if you want. If you think of one during the event, just get a card, fill it out, bring it up, and I'll read it out. So don't hesitate if you have questions. Otherwise, all I have is questions. I have no answers in life. I have a lot of questions for these people, so I could ask questions all night. But if you have a question, feel free to pass it up. Let's start off, though, with the brief introduction of the candidates. We can start just from left to right here is fine, maybe 30 seconds or so. If you want to, right ahead.
Yes, my name is Richard Ligon, and I'm running for Lake County Sheriff, and I love your support. My vision for the Lake County Sheriff Department: people of Lake County need to sleep better at night, knowing that the law is being upheld. The integrity is most important. There's no way to tell you that how important your integrity, honesty, and transparency will be for Lake County. I'm asking for your support on May 8th or before. Thank you very much.
My name is David Dowling, and I'm also a candidate for Lake County Sheriff, and I ask for your support tonight. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Hammond, where my grandfather was the long-serving mayor of Hammond. My dad was a police chief, and our family has a history of public service. My career has taken me through Cherville the last 34 years. In 1984, I was hired as a police officer in Cherville. Spent the next 34 years there. I was the chief of police for 10 years, and I served in some type of command level position for 20 years. I do believe that my experience prepares me probably better than anybody in this field to take on the role as Lake County Sheriff, and I just ask for your support.
Good evening. First of all, thank the Indiana University and Jerry Davich, the Post-Tribune, and everyone else for this opportunity to come before you. My name is Mike Brown. I'm currently your Lake County clerk. I've served as your Lake County elected official for the past 14 years. After 5 years, I left the recorder's office better than I found it, and I will be leaving the clerk's office after 9 years better than I found it. When I was elected if I'm elected as your next Lake County Sheriff, I will continue to work tirelessly on behalf of all the citizens of this county from Gary to Lowell. I will bring professionalism, transparency, and most importantly, integrity back to the Sheriff's Department. I will secure the public trust. Thank you. God bless you.
My name is Nate Hall, and I'm a candidate for the office of Lake County Sheriff. I'm a law enforcement officer with over 38 years of experience and a graduate of the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, who will provide the safety and law and order that is needed for all of Lake County. I'm a man of honesty, integrity, and proven leadership. Change starts now, and I will lead the charge.
My name is Maria Trigovich, and I work for the Lake County Sheriff's Department. I'm currently a corporal in charge of our property management division. I have 20 years of experience on our police department. I've worked very closely through all the different divisions that I've been in with all the men and women on our department, along with the courts, juvenile, and other communities and agencies. I believe with my experience that I am the person better than any person on this table tonight to be the sheriff of Lake County.
Hello, I'd like to thank Indiana University also for holding this forum, and I'd like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this thing. During my 26 years on the department, I have worked in many areas of almost every division in the Lake County Sheriff's Department. I know where the problems are, and especially I know how to fix them. I'm asking for your support in this election to be your next sheriff of Lake County.
Hello, my name is Oscar Martinez, and I'm currently your Lake County Sheriff. 6 months ago, when I was elected, I hit the ground running. I'm proud to say that we've done a lot of good things in the Sheriff's Department, and I couldn't have done it with the command staff that I have appointed and the administration that I have. Together, we had faced those challenges head on. And I'm so proud of the men and women that work in the police department, the administration, and the command staff. These are people that I worked with for 25 years, people that I know who they are, what qualifications they have, their experience. I look forward to speaking more about the Sheriff's Department and what we've done and how we face those challenges. I ask for your vote and your support to continue on the job that we're doing. Thank you.
My name is Wally DeRose. I want to thank you for inviting me to this very important event. I have over 40 years of law enforcement experience, having been on 3 police departments and 2 federal agencies. I'm originally from Gary and graduated from Emerson High School. I hold an associate degree, a Bachelor of Arts degree, and a master's degree in criminology. Due to recent deplorable events that happened to the former sheriff, I believe that the department needs a complete overhaul from top to the bottom. I'd like to lead that charge. I hope you vote for me on Election Day. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Betty Dominguez. This kind of brings back memory. This is my alma mater. I graduated here in 1978 with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. That led me to being a probation officer, juvenile and adult, for over 30 years. I've worked in this community and I care and I understand the needs by working as a probation officer. You don't have to be a law enforcement officer or a police officer to be a sheriff. You just have to have that leadership quality, integrity, and honesty. And that is sometimes lacking in some. I feel it's necessary to do that and tell you what each one has done for the past 33 years. Thank you very much. I hope that I do get your support. Thank you.
All right, that went well, didn't it? So what I don't want to be up here is like a time police, like, oh, your time is up, you got to stop. You can so kind of have that in mind. We'll give a minute or 2 for each question, and you guys can kind of trail off without me having to remind everybody all the time or having somebody else yell at you. So just keep that in mind. And also, I don't think, Dan Bursek, I don't think you mentioned your name when you were introducing yourself. So Dan, could you raise your hand? You are the lone Republican candidate, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yes, everyone else is Democrat. He's the lone Republican for the May primary, so you guys know. Because I don't think you mentioned that. Also, this event is being recorded, video recorded, and it'll be shared in a couple days, I'm told, by the school, and shared by me in my Post-Tribune column and also on my social media sites. So if anybody wanted to be here and they can't be here, and I heard a lot of Raiders told me that, it'll be out in a day or 2, so nobody will miss a thing, in other words. And one last thing, to the candidates, something I wrote down when I interview people, and I've interviewed a lot of people, including some of these candidates, is that I think they've already introduced themselves and who they are. So I think for the rest of the night, we don't need any more platitudes from them. We just need plans. We need your action plans. We don't need to know who you are, but what you're going to do for us. I don't think nobody really cares so much. They just want to know what your plans are. So keep that focused if you would. I'd appreciate it, and I think all the voters appreciate that too. So, yeah, at least one voter will. All right. So with that said, I do have a list of questions. The audience has a few questions also, but the first question I'll ask is going to go to all of the candidates except for the current Sheriff Martinez. What could you, candidates, do better than Oscar Martinez is doing right now, considering what he inherited? And we can go from left to right to start off. We'll go from right to left so everybody gets a chance. But Oscar, you don't need to answer this, but I want them to answer it. What would you be doing in Oscar's place he's not doing right now, considering what he inherited when he came in?
Yeah, my name is Richard Ligon. I have 36 years of military experience. I also have 23 years as a federal agent. I've been vested with the federal government. I have top secret clearance. First thing I would do is meet with people from the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense. There are so many programs. There's the Eye in the Sky. There are a lot of programs. I would make sure that we get in the prevention mode. We know that there's an opiate crisis. We understand that. So we need prevention programs that the Department of Defense has. So I would make sure that I sit down and meet within 60 days. I would meet with people from the Department of Justice, most of all the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I would meet with the Department of Defense people, because the military now and the Department of Defense is actually sharing roles with local police and state police and providing equipment. So I would make sure that officers and even correctional are properly equipped.
Okay. Dave Downs?
You know, there are several things that we could touch on with that question, but I'll just start out with talking about image. Image is who we are. Image sets the tone of organization of our police department, and I think that's very important. And the best way to interact with that image and try to improve your image is through community efforts, community policing, regional partnerships, things like that. That's what I have. I've had a lot of experience in my former job. I think when you get out in the community and you work with business groups, faith-based groups, community groups in general, you build trust. And when you build trust, it comes a long way in getting you through difficult times. Obviously, standards is another big area of concern. You know, a lot of talk recently has been concerning Lake County Jail and reading the DOJ standards. Of course, I've had a lot of experience in that. We've been a nationally accredited police department in Sherwood for the past 10 years. Very proud of that. Just last year, when we went through our reaccreditation, we had what they call zero applied discretions, which means we had a perfect score. Extremely proud of that. And whether it's CLIA accreditation or meeting standards in the jail, it's very similar because you're meeting standards. And I think that's very important for us to continue to work on, continue to improve. And those are some of the two areas that we'll talk about right now, but I'm sure we'll get into a lot more as the night goes on.
Okay. Michael Brown?
Good evening, thanks for the question. Happy to be the only person up here who's been elected to 2 offices 4 consecutive times by the voting public. One of the first things you do is go in and work with the people that are there before you make moves, because you don't know what talent you already have. And one of the things that I saw was a lot of movement, you know, in the command staff and things like that. One of the things about me as an elected official, when I go in, I like to find out who has the talent, who has the ability to adapt to what we need to do. And I think one of the problems with that is when you put someone in, if they're training, there's nothing like having someone that already knows what needs to be done. And a lot of times people get moved around who are really committed to what they do. And if you look at my track record, you'll see that every office I go into, I immediately work with the staff that's there. Now, we do make changes, but it's over a period of time, and that's based on performance and performance only. Thank you.
All right. Nate?
Yes. I would identify the needs of the community as well as the agency itself, in which I would be working to see what problems exist that can be better dealt with to improve the entire police department. Image is important, and I would reshape and restore that image as best possible and trust with the community to have a better police department and have a relationship with the community which will trust the police as well as the police department, and the sheriff is the person who sets the tone for such. I would also set goals for the officers and itself, meaning that success would be expected and excellence would be demanded, that you would have a well-trained machine of officers as well, and partnership with the community, the churches, the business leaders, and so forth, to find out what we need to do to make not only one county, but all counties and communities in Lake County great again.
Okay. Maria?
What I would do is I would interview each and every officer in our department, find out where their strengths and weaknesses are, and also ask them and check with them to see where they'd like to be or where they see themselves. I don't think that's asked at all. We have a lot of talented, experienced officers that could be in areas that they're not. Also, I would meet with the correction officers and do the same thing as well. With the DOJ in the jail, also get that out from under us. Again, I've said it before, it's an embarrassment, and that's a lack of supervision. We have horrible supervision, good supervision and bad supervision, and that's where we lack. But that's not only our police department, that's our environment also. If we had better supervision with our children, with our officers, with our employers, and the environment in the community, I think a lot of the problems that we have now wouldn't be what they are, and especially with drugs. I would also take the politics, 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 out of the department. This is a huge problem with politics and nepotism. People are transferred, people are buried because of who they support, and if you're not related to somebody, our hiring list is not fair. We should go from the top to the bottom. I've been involved with the agility as well as the written. I've seen some good men and women come in, and I've never seen them hired. But we sure have 4 or 5 different, names of the same in our department. So I'd like to see that change. I think a committee should be formed. I think we should interview them fairly and find out who is qualified and who isn't. Not who's related and who isn't. Because somebody who is not related is probably better qualified than the person that is related. Because everybody's son and daughter needs a job. So that's another thing I would do. I would also be a social influence. We're only as good as our community. We need to get out there. We need to talk to people. Because how can we know what's going on if we don't do that? We need to reach out to the kids. I know that this is not the police officer's obligation or duty to reach out to the children, but I have 17 years that I worked at County High School very closely at events with kids, and those are the eyes and the ears of our community, are the children, and also the environment. I also would.
Hold on, Maria.
Yes.
Dan, how about you? I'm speaking for all these people here. It wasn't for me at all. You're giving me the stink eye. I can feel it. Go ahead, Dan. Go right ahead. Give me a cop for half.
Community is crucial to the department along with the officers. We need to get together. When an individual calls, they should know that their situation is our primary concern. We shouldn't look at on the aspect of the employees of the sheriff's department shouldn't have anything to do with what political party they belong to or whatever. You know, they should look at the person's credibility, what type of training they had. We've had people in our department that flew helicopters that wound up in transportation. Why? Because they were just being punished, basically. During my time in the office, I went from pillar to post in numerous places. So that would have to be taken care of. I would like to talk to each individual officer, get to know them, especially now with a lot of the new hirees that I don't know, because I'd like to look the person in the eye and talk to them and make sure that, hey, I want to know how you see your career going in 5 years from now. Not just today or tomorrow, but what do you see as a career goal? Because if I put a person where they're supposed to be, they're going to be happy with their work. And when they're happy in their work, they do a better job. They'll do a better job for me. They'll make themselves look good, but in turn, they make me look good as a sheriff. So that's the key. I'd get into the jail. I never worked the jail. You know, when I came on, we had a decree, the same thing. They said, no, we're bringing in all correctional officers. County officers are being pulled out. You're going to go straight on the streets. I missed a part of that because you learn in the jail how to make informants, how to talk to prisoners, how to talk to other people. If I'm elected, what I will do is during my transition period, I will work the jail. I will go in there and find out, so I know exactly what's going on in that jail. Then after that transpires, to go in there and clean up this place, I will make periodic checks of the jail. And make sure that everybody is on the same page, talk to the people in the jail, make sure that we've got our manpower is utilized correctly, and everybody is put where they should be.
How about you, Wally?
Thank you. As a former Gary Police Commander and Special Agent with the State Department of Homeland Security, I've already developed short-term goals. There's short-term goals and long-term goals. Number one, I've developed new form of evaluations for each officer. Based upon those evaluations would be additional training if required. If not, there would be an incentive. I would develop an employee assistance program where officers going in the wrong direction can receive help before they go deeper into problems. Background investigations would be changed at the onset. Those coming on board and being recruited would go through intensive background investigations, which would be more in-depth than they are now. The court security program would be changed, hiring only those who have background investigation experience and or veterans and or law enforcement officers with that experience. They could even be retired. I would develop a missing children program based at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And one time, chiefs of police were going to that program. I taught across the street, and the academy was there. That program was dismissed some time ago. Participative type of management would be my style. I would send surveys out to the public asking what's good about the department, what's bad about the department. I go to the patrol division where the grunts are at. What do you think about the department? What do you think is bad about the department? All sit down together with community leaders, including the clergy, and say, what can we do to offset any problems that we may encounter? Thank you.
How about you, Betty?
You know what, I've worked with the Lake County Sheriff's Department since 1978 as a probation officer, juvenile and adult. I understand the chain of command. I also understand each of the departments, from the detective to the wards, to POI, to transportation, to the mental health, as well as medical. Those are the areas when a person is locked up will end up in a courtroom. And those are who we see every day for 33 years. When a police officer arrests someone, they will detain them. And it is up to the judge to decide what happens. The judge doesn't go out on the field. That is the job of a probation officer. We investigate, supervise, and rehabilitate. One thing, though, I will ensure is to look at the budget line item by line item. It's a $35 million budget, okay? And part of that, $4.5 million, is with medical and mental, and that is skyrocketing. I understand the needs of the people that I've worked with, over 1,000 defendants that I've dealt with, dealing in mental health, domestic violence, child abuse, and actually working with them, sex offenders, pedophiles, homicide. I've investigated those for the judge. I am a law enforcement for the court, not just a police officer. Police officer, I understand, will arrest, but something's got to happen to that individual. That is what I do every day. Working with the community, the churches, the prosecutor's office, defense attorneys, as well as the community agency as far as the schools. One thing I would like to implement is an emergency evacuation plan for all the schools. That's important, including Indiana University and Purdue Cal. You have to review that with everything that's happening at Parkland. You also have, as working with juveniles, the mentoring program is important. Juveniles are lost. They have no guide. I understand that. I worked that for 10 years. As far as I'm reacting...
Hold on, Betty, I'm cutting you off right there.
Thank you.
Sorry, I guess I'll have to do that routine.
Mr. Davidge, can I respond to that?
Sure, of course you can. Of course, your next question is going right to you first, though, just for the record.
Since taking office, we have done a lot of good things. We have met with the Department of Justice. We sit down with them every month, talk about the jail issues. We've taken on the challenges of the jail and what's been going on, and we've made progress in that. We started equipping our officers with better equipment and training, instituting a diversity program and de-escalation program that's not just for police officers but civilians, and as well as corrections. Politics in the police department. We have one that used to be a candidate that's on the department. He's a commander in special operations. I looked at every officer in the department. If they have a right to support who they want, that's their right. That's their constitutional right to choose who they want. I can't hold that against them. I think that's loyalty. They believe in that person, and I respect that. And I hope that people that believe in me have that same loyalty. But if you're a good officer, you're doing your job. We have candidates here in this debate that have relatives on the department. They haven't been moved. They're doing their job, and that's all I ask for. As far as the jail,
the cost in medical is high, but the cost in medical overall is coming down. Having a psychiatrist now that we contracted, controlling and having better prescribing practices, our pharmaceutical bill a month was over $100,000, and now we're looking at the $80,000. So I think the things that we put in place, that we are taking action right now, shows what we're doing.
I think the reputation of the county is working against all of you. Simple as that. That's what you're addressing to a lot of these voters, I think, is the reputation of Lake County, and that's their biggest concern. It's not individually, it's what they look at in the past. Which leads to my next question, starting off with Sheriff Martinez here. Do you think former Sheriff John Bunsett received a prison sentence that was too harsh, or was it appropriate? You don't have to elaborate, just give me a short answer.
No.
Is it appropriate or too harsh?
Well, that's determined by the judge, the standards that they, and the guidelines that they follow.
I understand, I'm asking you your opinion.
You break the law, you break the law, you get what's coming to you.
It was appropriate. How about Betty? Appropriate, not appropriate?
Yes, it is. 15 and a half years is very appropriate for someone that was stealing.
Wally?
Whether it is a police officer or not.
Wally, appropriate or too harsh?
No, it was appropriate based upon the guidelines of the federal court.
Dan?
It was appropriate.
Maria?
I don't think so.
You don't think it was
I think
appropriate?
people have done worse and done less. No, I think so. That's my opinion.
I give you credit for honesty,
Thank you.
that's for sure. Nate?
Appropriate.
Appropriate. Michael?
We're sworn by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Indiana. And if we violate that, because we held to a higher standard,
Yes.
and because the public expects.
And they already doubt you because it's Lake County.
So the sentence and everything else is going to be harder for us because of the trust that the public gives us.
All right.
So if we violate that, whatever happens, we have to take that.
All right.
Okay.
Dave?
Yeah, I just think it, when it falls in, within the sentencing guideline, there's a low and there's a high, and obviously the judge felt that being the sheriff held him to a higher standard, so based on those standards, I'd say it's appropriate.
Appropriate. Richard?
I think it was a little too harsh. He should have received something, but when you talk about sentencing guidelines, and you're talking about the health and the age of an individual, that has to be taken under consideration. So I thought it was a little too harsh. I think the federal judge had the guidelines and he followed it. Yes, something, if he was found guilty by the jury, definitely something serious should have happened. But I think it was a little too harsh for the age, the medical condition of that individual.
Okay. Context, okay. The first question from one of the audience members is, have you ever filed bankruptcy, Chapter 7? Just yes or no, to find out to elaborate. Richard?
Ooh.
Some kind of no by Richard.
You want something?
No, that's it. Dave?
No.
Michael?
Yes.
Nate? No. Maria?
No.
Dan?
Yes.
Oscar? Yes. Wally?
No.
And Betty?
No.
So there's your answer for that. Was that the fastest answer? You got to appreciate that. You can ask yes or questions. So I know that all of the candidates have rehearsed kind of your elevator speech of what you're going to say, and I appreciate that. But some of these answers that people are looking for are from the heart. Yeah, feel free to hand it up if you like. If you have a question, that's fine. I think they appreciate the honest from the gut versus something scripted off a piece of paper, so keep that in mind. And I'm all for it also, too. So, I'll read that question from the fifth, so it's not a Democratic issue. Are all of you willing to take the ethics pledge and training for officers? I got this from the Sheriff Ethics Advisory Committee last week. If you become sheriff, you're all for taking the ethics pledge and maybe some training for the officers? Richard?
Yes, the training at least minimum once a year.
Once a year. Dave?
The answer to that is obviously yes, I've already signed it and turned it in. It was the first day I have it, and part of working in sheriff, we were one of the original group that was in it, along with the ethics commission, and we train on a regular basis and we practice that.
Okay.
I've always supported the ethics issue, and I would have no problem signing it at all.
All right. Nate?
Yes, I have a copy, and yes, it's fine.
Good answers. Go ahead. Yeah, just yes. This is a gift.
Absolutely.
This is a silly question to ask. You're just saying, no, I'm against ethics in Lake County. I'm not going to sign it. But it did come from the audience, so I'm going to read it. Dan?
I've signed it in these past elections. I'm planning on signing it this.
Well, how many of you have signed it already or gave the pledge? Just say that.
None of the past.
You have already in the past. Okay. All right.
I have not.
Okay. We'll move on from that one. I guess question is, what do you think the major problems we face in jails, and what would you do to fix it? Which ties into a question I had, is what do you think the biggest critical problem in Lake County is today? And please don't elaborate for too long on this. I want a problem and some kind of an idea of a solution if you can. Let's just start with on the end. Betty, you want to go first? What's the biggest problem facing Lake County? Biggest problem in Lake County that's facing the Lake County Sheriff's Department? Biggest problem. Betty, what do you think?
Right now, I think it's the honesty part, okay? There are certain things that's going around that I think it's not being told, and that is the Horseshoe Casino scandal, where Oscar was involved, when he was getting ghost payrolling for 3 years. I'd like to know, okay?
So if you had 25 minutes on your clock for how long it'll take before this comes out, there you go.
That's something I think should be advised, where it was going to his personal checking account for 3 years.
That's the biggest problem facing Lake County?
No, it is not, but honesty is.
Then answer my question, if you would. What's the biggest problem facing Lake County right now?
People that lie to the citizens of this county and not telling the truth.
Okay. I agree with that. I'm all on board with that. Wally, what do you think? Biggest problem facing Lake County that faces the Sheriff's Department?
Excuse me, the influx of narcotics coming in from Chicago through organized gangs.
Okay.
The biggest
Sheriff
problem
Martinez?
that's facing Lake County is
Yeah.
we do have an opioid problem. In 2016, we had 114 overdose deaths just in Lake County. Porter County had only 25. And just last year, we almost went up 100% in the overdose deaths, approximately 210 overdose deaths dealing with opioids. We see that problem. I've created the Highway Interdiction Program and reinstituted the Highway Interdiction Program that was dismantled for several years. We're going out there seizing drugs, large amount of drugs, kilos of heroin, cocaine, drug proceeds, and also rebuilding the narcotic division. The other problem that we're facing within the jail has already been, we've been moving forward on it. The two major problems under the Department of Justice mandate of noncompliance was not having a jail warden. We conducted a nationwide search for a jail warden. We interviewed several jail wardens, and we found a true professional, an administrator for the jail. The other thing was a psychiatric nurse practitioner. We did also a nationwide search for a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and we haven't had one in over a year, since February. We've attacked those challenges head on. We've been taking action, and we've been getting results.
All right, Dan, what do you think? Biggest problem facing Lake County?
Accountability. The biggest problem we have right now, and that's not just in the Sheriff's Department, that's all across the county. You've got a one-party rule here, and once you do that, they take care of each other. So when you have nobody watching out for you, you've got a prosecutor that looks the other way when certain crimes are committed, or if it was a friend of a friend, then they don't do nothing about it. Then all of a sudden they prosecute somebody, for a DUI that, can't really afford the ticket, but all of a sudden, boom, they come down on him like a ton of bricks. I'm here to tell you, if I'm elected, I'll be your watchdog. I'll be the first Republican sheriff in over 70 years. And to tell you the truth, there hasn't been one Republican sheriff that's been indicted.
In 70 years. Maria, most critical problems facing Lake County.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say, Betty, shame on you. Shame on you. Because this is what we're trying to stop. I can attack at the jugular too, okay? I can get somebody somewhere too. But just to make it all fair now, so we're all feeling a little better about all this, because we're gonna act like grown people here, people that were representing the Lake County of Indiana. Betty, when your husband was sheriff, he transferred me 7 times, but Mr. Dominguez, thank you so much, because I've got a wealth of experience now. So my hat's off to you, sir. So now that I've got that out, and shame on Betty, I apologize for that. This is what I would do.
Dominguez is not running for sheriff.
I would stop that. That needs to stop. And that's what I would do if I was sheriff. This nonsense of corruption, of he did that, she did that, I don't like this, I don't like that, knock it off. We have a county to take care of. We have officers. We have a jail that's in trouble. We have kids doing drugs. Come on now. Talk about how come, ask him why he hasn't caught the cartel, but don't ask him why he was ghost payrolling, okay? Because that's my question.
You know what?
Don't get Maria riled up,
That's
guys.
my question. That's my question.
Oscar
Because we
Martinez
do-
did a drug cartel.
All right.
We do have a drug problem.
Only 2
folks,
times.
And I think that's our problem right now, handling the drugs and handling the nonsense in our department and getting rid of the nasty black eyes that we have.
All right, a lot of black guys, no doubt about that.
It's been 15
Nate,
years.
Nate, how about you? Biggest problem facing Lake County right now?
Behind that, I really don't know what to say, but
Just say what she said. We're mad about it.
I will say that evidently it is apparent that honesty and integrity and accountability is an issue, and favoritism and nepotism and cronyism has taken over.
There's a lot of bad isms in Lake County, no doubt.
And corruption, so that's where we're at, and it's a problem.
All right.
I would just like to remind all the candidates how well we got along last week in Hammond.
Don't blame me for this. I watched that too. It is very simple.
We have some excellent students here who I spoke to earlier about how important they are and how important the future are, and they have to be saying, what the, you know? So, that being said, like Rodney King said, can we all just get along? That's the first part.
No.
Now, the problem is very simple, and I've been a county elected official long enough to know that the general public just doesn't trust us as elected officials, whether it's the media or the mistakes that's been done. And in this case of the sheriff's office, the public is going to go to the polls because early voting started today, and I voted, by the way, and they're going to make a decision who the next sheriff should be. I'm not a police officer. I'm an administrator. I think the police department, overall, they're good policemen. I think the public overall is good people. We just need to be able to come together. I think that's where the problem is. I think if you train the police properly, you treat them right, I think they'll be more receptive to the public. And if you educate the public more about the problems and how stressful it is for the police officer, and we can meet each other sort of like in the middle, you know? Same thing with the correctional officers. Because I think what we have in here is just a lot of hostility that's unnecessary. And I think that's probably the biggest problem that we have. And I say that because of my experience of dealing with the county council and the commissioners. It's great to sit up here and say, I'm going to do this and do that, but we're governed by the county council and we're governed by the commissioners what we can do. And we have a limited budget on a regular basis. So we have to be fiscally responsible in how we handle and how we run those departments. So I say to you that it's most important to be honest with yourself. It requires help from everyone for us to be successful. And so the problem with Lake County, the problem with the sheriff's office, it's all our problem. That's what the problem is. And the solution is everyone in this room. Thank you. God bless you.
All right. Dave?
Really, you kind of asked 2 questions at once there. What is the overall major problem in Lake County, and then also what's the major problem in the Sheriff's Department? I tend to look at that 2 different ways. And first of all, the number 1 problem in this county, because it affects us in so many different ways in all of our lives and our families, is opiates. And I'm very proud of what I've done in Cherville on that opiate front. And I hear people talking about doing things now. Well, we've been doing things for the last 2 years. And how that all started was I had asked our command staff to get with vendors and meet with people and talk about education, treatment, and enforcement. Those are the 3 things. We cannot arrest our way out of our problems. Putting an interdiction team on the board does not solve the opiates problem, people. It does not. That's one facet of 3 facets. You have to have the education and the treatment. And the big issue always was insurance. When you talk about treatment, about having insurance coverage. So what we did in Cherville, we found a couple of vendors who were willing to work with us. They paid for it through grants. So regardless of your status, you got treatment. And how you got treatment was all you had to do was call the police station or walk in and we'd put you together with a detective who would hook you up with the treatment facility. That would either be driving you there or hooking you up by telephone, however you chose to do it. In the last 18 months before I left, we had put over 30 people in treatment, and not one single person was tied to a criminal arrest. Now that is doing something. Now I applaud the coroner's efforts, and I think the sheriff has been on board with this too, about doing some things at as people are released from jail, and that's great. We need to do that too, but I prefer to reach these people before they offend, not after they offend. I think that should be the goal, to make a safe community. Secondly, the Sheriff's Department. Come on, we're sitting here, we're getting some reaction about what people have to say. This is a debate, it's a lively political season. Let's lay the facts out. Let's lay the facts out for what they are, the truth. And the truth is this. First of all, I think it's great that the appointed sheriff has hired a qualified individual to run your jail. That is a good move. However, that appears to be the only position that he has gone through that hiring process. The appointing sheriff has continued to be, you support me, and you'll get something in return mentality. Proof of this is not a single command position was posted before being filled. Chief of staff was given to a politically connected individual, not posted. Bookkeeper given to a campaign volunteer, not posted. In my administration, I'm telling you how I've done things, because I have a 34-year unblemished record in history. And my history is this. When I became the chief in Cherville, I opened that up to every supervisory position in the department, and I interviewed every single one before I made appointed decisions, and I think that's what true leadership is. Thanks.
Richard, what do you think?
What was the question?
I know. That is exactly the right question to ask.
One more time.
Biggest problem facing the county, or who you're mad at, or what you want for dinner. You can take a pick on that.
First of all, I love everybody up here, and I'm glad to referee a fight.
Fair enough.
What we have to understand is that we've been all over the community. We've been all over Lake County.
Right.
And the relationship between police officers and the community, it doesn't exist as strong as it needs to. If you have a homicide today and you don't solve that homicide, that simply means that no one's talking, they're afraid, and they don't trust you. So once that trust is developed and they trust you, they're going to talk. So if you solve that homicide, next week the revenge homicide won't happen, and it won't continue back and forth, and you end up with 20 homicides because the first one wasn't solved. So if that community trusts you, and I had a confidential informant fund, and if that's what it takes to pay somebody to get them to trust you to talk, that's what you need. We look at crisis, we look at drug interdiction on the highways, we look at different things that happen. But one key that helped take drugs off the street was controlled deliveries. The controlled deliveries is something we need to get back in Lake County. The controlled deliveries are affecting this community. That means if it's coming through the U.S. mail, FedEx, anything, if you stop it, that means you're stopping it from coming into this county. Then the programs that have been effective, like the counter drug program that we started and it was prevention. We actually started this program to actually deal with the young people that are having these problems. Now, we don't have enough solutions for our young people. Our young people are growing into these positions of criminals, and we have to take a strong look at developing a boot camp here. So some of the problems that face the sheriff department is unique, but you have to get a buy-in from all the community, all of the resources in the community, start working with them, and every possible person that will help. You need that help as a volunteer. So I would say that the history, you need to make sure that everyone knows the history of the candidate that you're supporting.
All right. Sorry. Oh, no, I didn't mean that. I'm just agreeing with you here. Yeah.
And do the research.
I agree.
Do the research and find out if that person has had a background investigation or a top secret clearance. But
voters are lazy, and they're not going to do that. We already know that.
No,
most voters are lazy.
You can have that done. So I'm just saying, I know for me.
I don't have that same hope. I'm going to cut you off right here, Richard.
Okay.
Another question for you guys, a little faster, please. If you don't win the primary election, will you publicly and openly support the Democratic winner? These are for the Democratic candidates, not for you, Dan. Would you openly support whoever wins this primary election? Openly and publicly?
Openly and
Because we will check on it later, of course, after the May primary. We will see if you actually openly and publicly support these people through November or not.
I have a lot of programs that I would be glad to discuss, whether it's openly or not. I don't want any credit for anything, but I will openly
support.
I will support, not openly, but I will support them with these programs.
I appreciate your candor, Richard.
What I want to do is make sure that person's in that position,
I get it.
whether good or bad, gets credit for what he or she is doing.
All right.
Now, if there's programs that I can help with secretly, I'm gonna help.
You have it for the record here. If you can help secretly, Richard will help secretly. Dave, what do you think? Openly, publicly, do you support the winner of the May primary? If it's not you.
Well, I guess I really haven't thought of that because I plan on winning the May 8th primary, number one. But
All right.
number two, of course, I would support the party nominee.
You would.
Yes.
Michael?
I have to agree with him. I hadn't thought about losing either.
That's why I'm asking you. He doesn't know the other questions already.
But at the end of the day, we are a Democratic Party.
True.
And we should show some unity. This is one of the problems we talked about earlier. So if you're in the party, if you're committed to the party, openly support that person and give them some input as to what you can do to help make them better as your next sheriff. Because it doesn't make sense for all of us to be up here running for sheriff and everyone has great ideas and then one person wins and everybody else walks away with great ideas and the public suffers. Thank you.
Good answer, Mike.
Nate?
Yes, and absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Maria? Openly?
Yes,
Publicly?
absolutely.
Proudly?
No, I respect anybody who's the Lake County Sheriff. That's a high position. They deserve that respect, whether I like them or not. And I'll continue to be the officer that I am, a damn good one.
All right.
Well, since I don't have a primary
Yeah.
challenger.
Yeah, you're good to go for now, Dan. I think you're okay. Yeah, you can skate through this. All right.
Yes, in the primary, we're running to be that party's
Yes,
selection.
right.
So as good Democrats and supporting ourselves, I will be there to be the winner, number one, and to be successful. And God forbid, if anything happens that it doesn't go the way we want, well, I will be there always to support the Democratic Party, but we got to start looking towards making this a bipartisan election, because I don't think it should be party affiliated when you're dealing as a top law enforcement officer, because you're here to serve and protect everyone, regardless if they're Republican or Democrat, just like the school board. There should be a general election with no party affiliation, and I think that's the way to address a lot of these issues, especially for such a position like this.
All right. Well, we're going to keep tabs on all you guys as losers and see how you do. The winner we'll know about already. Wally, what do you think?
Well, I'm a Democrat, and I go with Democratic ideals, but in terms of law enforcement, I'll assist any party, especially when it comes to public safety.
How about you, Betty? Openly and publicly support any of these candidates?
Of course, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I will support, and I've always supported candidates in the Democratic Party in the primary, in the general election.
Including Oscar? You'll support Oscar,
Of course, I'll
too?
support Oscar.
All right.
I've known Oscar for over 20 years.
Okay.
I've known Mike for 20 years. I've known Liggins for 34 years.
Here's a question from the audience. A member of the audience asked to David Dowling, during your time as police chief in Cherville, why did not you hire any African-American officers? And I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm putting it out there for you.
Oh, sure, I'm glad to answer that because we've done a lot in that area. First of all, Cherville's a mid-sized, small department. We have 49 officers. I say we, I'm not there anymore, but Cherville has 49 officers. And we don't have a lot of turnover, okay? And just recently did we start having turnover again through some retirements. We had a younger department. We probably went 4 or 5 years, didn't hire anyone. So that question, as far as that goes, is slightly slanted because it's not really something that we're considering every year like larger departments are hiring every year. Here's the beauty of accreditation, what we've gone through. We do a demographic study every year. It's part of our annual report. It comes back to us and it talks about what our demographics are. It talks about our arrests, our traffic tickets, our hiring, where our numbers should be. And through all of our accreditations, our minority hiring, staffing was in appropriate levels with females, Hispanic officers, and we did not have any African American officers. So what I did was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I reached out to Dr. Vanessa Allen McLeod, who is Executive Director of the Urban League of Northwest Indiana, and I knew that we needed some help on the recruiting side because we were having plenty of African American applicants. We weren't having luck on a lot of them making our list after the test. So what my thought was, we were not recruiting in the right areas. So besides going out to universities, different things, well, the Urban League was able to help us out tremendously. About 4 months after that, Dr. Allen asked me to come on the board of directors for the Urban League, which I did. And the last process we just went through, just prior to leaving, we had slightly more African Americans who took the test, but we almost doubled the amount of ones who are eligible for hire. So I'm hopeful that in Cherville over the
So are there any
time
current
period-
black officers in Cherville?
I said there wasn't. I said zero.
No, okay.
No.
There we go. Whoever answered, there's your answer.
But
This is a good segue.
The more important thing is the process and what we've been through and what we're doing to address that. Because anyone can say you have a problem. Well, I can show you what we're trying to do to address the problem. That's what I'm talking about.
I got you. I wasn't pointing fingers. Somebody else was. I'm just pointing the finger forward. This is a good segue, though. What is your stance on diversity hiring? Is one of the questions from the audience here. Diversity hiring. This is something different. Wally, wake up. There you go. saw you chit-chatting over there. I'm going to grab you. Wally, what's your stance on diversity hiring?
Pardon me?
Diversity hiring, diverse hiring force.
Yeah, I'd have a diverse officer in my department to begin with, but as far as diversity is concerned, I learned from the federal level, easy way to do it. You go to the military and you go to college and you explain the benefits of being a police officer. I don't say you're going to be a police officer in a white community or a black community. You put out the announcement, they qualify for the position, and they qualify through all the testing and so forth. Yeah, you got to have diversity, you got to have ethnicity. I was on a black department myself in Gary, and I've seen other departments that had white officers and black officers.
Dan, how about you?
Excuse me. I don't see color. I'll tell you the truth. When I
do.
sit
I'll
down-
tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I do. I think most people here see it also.
But what I would do is this. You got the hiring process. You would make sure that it's fair. And all I do is I would see brown and tan. That's it. As long as the person is of moral character and he can do the job, hey, if you want to be lumberjack, you got to learn how to handle your end of the log. So that's all my criteria would be. I don't care if you're, black, white, Hispanic, whatever. I don't care. You could be a Martian, and be like that movie Alien, where they had Cisco and. But anyway, no, I wouldn't.
Maria, you've been in the department a lot. Have you seen a lot of diversity hiring? Is it getting better in Lake County?
Yes, I was the sole Hispanic female for a very long time, so yes, I see it now. And it almost is where it isn't color or sex, because I've seen a lot of men and women out of the department of color or Caucasian, and they're good officers, they're very good officers. So I think a lot of it has to go with the committee and the hiring process, and also in your environment. People relate. There's probably a little girl somewhere who saw me and said, man, I didn't know I could be a police officer. So that's important, but they have to be able to do the job.
All right, Nate, what do you think?
Yes, when I got hired, Gary Police Department, there were approximately 346 officers. That is substantially down from what it was. And I definitely believe in diversity, but the problem is not, to me, the individual, male, female, LGBT, whatever your gender is. It's not the individual applicant that is applying for the job. It's politics being played with the hiring process of other individuals, such as the mayors, that decide who should be a police officer doing their tour of duty as a mayor versus who is the most best applicant.
All right. Michael, what do you think?
I currently serve as a Lake County clerk, and we have offices in Gary, Hammond, East Chicago, Crown Point. We serve from juvenile up to the criminal division, and we're an extremely diverse office. And there's a reason for it, is because I believe in diversity and I believe in opportunity. And also, we have people from our educational backgrounds, from high school to master's degrees, working for us. And the other part of that is, we believe that the only way we can properly serve Lake County is that someone from your community is in our office. In other words, you need someone that when you come in the door or when you call or whatever, you need someone that understands what your needs are. So we try to make sure it is extremely diverse. So if you just go to our offices, whether it's small claims, traffic, criminal, probate, marriage, juvenile, wherever you go, you'll see a very diverse office. And I think diversity starts at the top with the leader. And I think if you're not diverse, you're just making excuses.
All right, Richard?
Definitely, I believe in diversity. When I was a federal agent, we worked 3 years on an assessment center. And that assessment center would allow people to take the test. And if you scored 60%, they weren't looking for the highest, then you would go on into the assessment process. And this assessment center actually, for 8 hours that day, you went through interviewing techniques, you went through the items that are required to be a police officer. So once this process was over, you were graded, and if you were weak in an area, they actually came back and told you what you needed to do. Did not look at color. When the tests were given for the test was given and you were anonymous, so no one really knew. So you did make it to the process if you scored 60%. So diversity is something that's needed. I think it's changed in the sheriff department, because when I worked cases with, when I was a federal agent, worked cases with them, there were maybe one or two minorities. So, it has changed a lot, and I'm thankful for that, because you see like the deputy chief and you see other people. So I strongly believe in diversity, and a lot of times that diversity reflects on the community and how you will communicate with the community.
All right, Oscar?
The sheriff's department that we have in place right now is a reflection of the community. I'm happy to say that we've been going out to job fairs, getting out to the colleges for recruitment. Now, one of the things that you have to look at is not about, I have several qualified African Americans, females, Latinos that are qualified to do this job. Just because they didn't pass the written test, they shouldn't be automatically eliminated. And it's not about passing the test, it's where they score. The problem, I think, is what we're going to do is looking and evaluating the test process. Remember, in any department in Lake County, all you need is a high school diploma or GED. That's all you need. And what the problem is in some of these tests, including our promotional test, is set at a college level. Not a lot of people went to college. And I saw a study that a person graduating from high school are usually graduating at about a 10th grade level. So we have to look at that. We have good qualified people. I have a gentleman that has a master's degree, just can't pass that sergeant's test. Great leader, great officer, somebody that I want to see in supervision. So we got to look at the whole process, the testing process, have them go on to the oral interview, the psychological test, and knowing those officers, knowing their capabilities and abilities to do the job.
So, Oscar, are you happy with Lake County's racial makeup now? Lake County officers?
Yes,
You are.
I think,
All right.
I know it's a reflection of the community, and they're there because they're qualified, that's why. There are qualified black people, there are qualified Latin people, there are qualified females. And I'm proud to say I'm a qualified Latino as your sheriff. So I'm proud to be here, I think I set that example, and
Okay. Betty, what do you think?
You know what? I'm an immigrant. I came from the Philippines, born and raised, 52 years ago. Okay, there is no race issue when you were brought up in the Philippines. So that's not something I think, look at. I think it is correct that this county is very diverse. But diversity is not just black or white. Diversity is also female. If you look at it, the issue on women is still unequal to men. How many public officials are women in Lake County? Nobody runs because it's all political. It's who you are beholden to. Okay? So I think women should come forward and do the things that is necessary to bring the level. The equal pay. We have no equal pay. Okay? There is no such thing. As we know, men get more money than a female. And that, I think, should be worked on. That is part of diversity, not just a black and white. Of course, I would hire not by color, because I don't see that, as you said, black and white, but not where I grew up.
Okay, good point, Betty. The gender issue. Three audience members have mentioned to me to ask questions how you would handle the opioid epidemic and heroin problem in Lake County, which also seeps in, of course, to Porter County and other counties also. We'll bounce around a little bit. Dan, you want to go first?
Training. I would bring in people that know about opioid addiction. I would speak with doctors, get them involved also. Judges need to be a part of that. We need to not punish these people, but to help them, find out, what we can do to stop them from having them. There's a reason why these people are addicted to it. It might be because they were on painkillers, because they got a hurt, broke a leg, and they got hooked on it. This stuff it's a devil. It's a monkey on their back that they need to be able to take care of. If they can come to the sheriff's department and get that help, let's get them help instead of incarcerating.
All right.
One thing we have been doing is again, we had an interdiction unit that worked on the interstate that was seizing a lot of drugs.
Right.
And that was dismantled for about 7 years. So we're starting with the skeleton crew. We're starting to man and fill those positions along with our narcotic division and our high crime unit as well. It's a little bit a part of everything. It's enforcement. Going out there, going after the drug traffickers, seizing the narcotics, doing controlled delivery, doing long-term investigation, and getting prosecutions, putting people behind bars. Now, the other part is the addiction part. Indiana is ranked 17th in the nation of overdose deaths. That's the state of Indiana. We have to address those issues. This is an illness. These are people that if they can quit, they'll quit. These are your mom, your dad, your loved ones that will steal from you to sustain their habit. So what happens? They're going to end up in our jail. And I'm proud to say, at least since we started the program, 40 has went through the program. We partner up with the prosecutors and the judges, Judge Cantrell and Shirelli. We're working together, not just as a volunteer purpose when they're in our jail, that they can volunteer to go through this program, but also an alternative for prosecution. And the Vivitrol program is the path to go. They'll come, they're evaluated through our medical, then they'll go through mental health to see if there's someone that is motivated to change, if they have any suicide or depression or liver problems. If they clear through mental health, they'll start that program for recovery. And what happens if they're in there for an alternative for prosecution, they'll go into a reentry program. So once they go, before leaving our jail, they're given a shot, Vivitrol. Now Vivitrol costs $1,800, which I managed to work with the organization to get that for free through our jail. And during that process, we're starting the application process for Medicaid. So once they're going to be released from our jail, they're given that shot. That shot lasts 28 days. So what that does, it blocks the opioid receptors in your brain. You don't get no euphoria. It works with alcohol too. So working along with the Veterans Court, with the judges, is an alternative. What it does is starts conditioning your brain that you don't need this substance. Unlike Suboxone or methadone. That creates a
Cut you right there, Oscar. Okay? Sorry.
Yeah, right.
I know it's important to these people. They want to hear different viewpoints also. Dave, how have you handled opioid addiction in the past and the epidemic?
Jerry, I think I addressed that a little bit earlier, but I'll go into it again. This is all about education and treatment and enforcement. Enforcement only takes us so far, and some of the stuff that's going on with the county right now on the back end, it's good, but the goal is to get these people before they offend, before you as citizens become victim of crime because they're offending. So what I haven't heard yet today is, and something that we have done in the Tri-Town area, is the partnership with schools. I think it's critical. In the Tri-Town area, for the last 4 years, we've met monthly with Lake Central School District. That's the chiefs, the sheriff of St. John and Dyer, and we talked about these things. And that's how the whole Stairway to Heroin event, where we partnered with providers, came about, is because of that program. But that started with a partnership with our local schools. So that's the education piece. And then when you talk about the treatment piece, I went into that earlier about...
So proactive, not reactive, you're trying to say.
Exactly, because we want to be out in front of those things. We don't want to be reacting to
which we're doing right
that,
now.
Which, if we have to do that for the people who have offended, so be it. We want to help them, but we want to get it on the front end. And what I'm saying is, for the last couple of years, I've been a part of that, and I think that program can be taken to the county level and be successful.
All right. Richard, we have an epidemic here or not? Lake County?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I had a conversation with a young lady, and we talked about 20 minutes, and I asked her what did she do. She stated she was a funeral director, and she said, what can you do, or what can we do as a community to just stop this? I mean, she said she can't take it anymore. These 5, 6-year-old children actually coming to their parents' funeral not understanding. There are programs, and like I explained to her, we have to deal with every community differently. We have all kind of social economic differences throughout Lake County, and we have to look at programs that will affect each county. The other thing is, when we talk about giving someone drugs that we know have side effects, and if you read the results of Vivitrol, it says it can cause liver damage, coma, and death. So why do we want to do that? It's hard for me to believe, and I know during the heroin and methadone crisis we did things, but that's not the answer. We have to be proactive. And I'll still go back to how successful we were when we had soldiers trained and they started working in the schools, and that's where they started. And they called it was the counter drug. It was the drug demand reduction program, and it wasn't just for Gary. It wasn't just for Lake County. It was for Lake, Porter, LaPorte County, and you started getting a lot of people together, and these people started working together, and there were programs, and it wasn't a scared straight program, but they educated the young people. So you prevented a lot of things for just educating. So the only way to keep this from, I mean, I'm not taking nothing that looks, I look at it and it says it could cause death, coma, liver damage. So being proactive is the answer, and we just have to get every program that we know, try it, and definitely get the VA
All right.
involved.
Michael, you have anything in your plans or platform to address this?
I think the first part of it is the prescription that's written. It starts with the doctor that actually writes the prescription. Before you go any further with that, people trust their doctor to give them a prescription that, in their opinion, is going to help them through that particular time. I think we need to train the doctors a little bit more about the onset, because it seems to me that there's an issue with monies that pharmaceutical companies have. Also, I think that we're not addressing the young people's position on that as to why they're taking these prescription drugs, why they're going into their parents' medicine cabinet and doing these things. And I also think it's beyond just the opiates. There's also an issue of other drugs and alcohol and mental health issues. There's so many other things out there that we have to address. And it's great that we talk about the opioids, but we need to talk about everything. We need to address everything. We can't just say, well, we fixed this and ignore the rest of the issues that are out there, because they're out there. And so I think what we need to do is to form a task force from a standpoint of work, like what they're doing, but working more with the youth, because if we can change their attitude toward the drug, I think a lot of things will change as well, because they start out very young, and a lot of times it's because no one is really listening to them. The same thing with a lot of other things that are happening.
Okay.
And I think we need to be able to do that.
Nate, what do you think? You got a plan?
Yeah.
What's your plan?
Opioids, alcohol, cocaine, crack, and any other drug that's out there now needs to be addressed, and we need to address them solely together versus separately. In Northwest Indiana, the opioid heroin crisis is a lot different than it is now in our neighboring communities. The crisis has left Northwest Indiana, Gary, East Chicago, Hammond, and it's now moved to Porter County, to Valparaiso, to St. John, and other areas. At one point, heroin addiction, opioid addiction was a criminal offense, and individuals were locked up and charged and put in jail for such. But now it has affected others, and now it's a crisis, it's a disease, and it's an epidemic. And the government is having a hard time trying to figure out what to do. We need programs to educate individuals about not only opioids, but all drugs. I found a young man, 18 years old, in the Motel Interlude. with the needle in his arm, OD. 2 females on the parking lot of McDonald's at Lake Street. Another young man, Jason, 26 years old, in a hotel. Heart attack, exploded his heart. A 14-year-old girl at Kipley.
We know the problems,
was doing
no doubt about it. We all know the problems. I'm looking for
And-
solutions here. That's what they want to hear,
The
solutions.
solution is to educate people about all drugs.
Maria, what do you got? Give us some solutions.
I think that we need to be more of a social influence because it does begin with the youth and also with colleges. I mean, there's kids sitting here now. How many parties you've been to where they're throwing these pills in a bowl and you can pick one out? Am I right? Sure, but we don't talk to them. We wait till it's already, like you said, reactive, not proactive. And yeah, we have the heroin opioid, but you know what, guess what? We got a big meth problem going on out there too. Because guess what they're doing? They're not driving down the highway. They're not cooking in some pole barn. They're doing it in their kitchen in a pot. And I'm sure college folks know about that, don't you? Have you heard of that? Yeah, I think you have. And the kids. We don't have enough programs with our children. We don't have the DARE program any longer. There's nothing wrong with the Scared Straight. There's nothing wrong with that program either. But we have to be more of a social influence. And the war on drugs, we lost. But we can recover from it. But we lost a long time ago.
Amen.
Dan, have I asked you this already? Sorry?
I started.
Wally?
Yeah, police officer stops the car, drags a woman out of the car, puts her down as being drunk. Guess what? She's not drunk. She's under the influence of hydrocodone and some other narcotic, and he doesn't know what to do. Every police officer should be equipped with Narcan, be able to recognize the signs of narcotic addiction. And there's a difference between sellers, high-grade sellers, and those who are addicted. Some are addicted because they have true medical problems. So from the basic standpoint of what we're going to do, it starts with the police officer knowing what to do and has specific training, and most departments haven't grasped that yet and taken steps for it. The problem is still here. Years ago, I worked in Gary. I used to work the Family Street Gang, big organization. Big organization, narcotics are still going on, heroin trade is still going on. They're not stopping at the source. They're letting the poppy seed grow overseas. They're not destroying them. But we in law enforcement are stuck with it. So police officers need advanced training, advanced medical training. It's not going to cost that much, and it's a value to save a life. And that's what we're all about. We are protectors, and we are lifesavers. If we're not that, then we're in the wrong profession.
Betty, what's your plan of action?
You know,
Oh, sorry.
sorry. I'm sorry. You know what? I've been to many funerals for overdose. There is a problem, of course. I agree with Maria. They won. However, it starts from the home, the parent, the father. You know, those are the things. The people here know what their kids are doing. You know what the people are doing out there? Of course you don't.
What would you do as Lake County Sheriff?
Of course, I've worked with the youth. I worked with juvenile for 10 years. We did the pre-investigation report. We understood those issues. Is going into the home. Those were my most successes, is that we go into the home of the people that have the issue. Parents has to be educated. Because parents, the one that are having kids, were kids to begin with. Okay, so you have to educate them. They were 13 when they got pregnant. How would they know to be parent? Okay, they're out on the streets. I had an 11-year-old prostitute that I had to deal with. But there was no family member, okay? So they're young adults that need to understand safe sex, okay? That's one thing that's very important. When they have a party, it goes wild.
Okay, I'm cutting you off right there. Sorry, you went from opiates to safe sex. We're going to change the gears here. Sorry. Question for the audience member. What can Lake County benefit from a needle exchange program? We don't need a lot of verbiage here. Want some yes and no's. Richard, can Lake County benefit from a needle exchange program? Is there one currently in existence, Oscar, that I'm not aware of?
No, we have the drug buyback to turn in. We have the mailbox to turn in your prescription drugs.
Right. That's not the same as a needle exchange program, correct?
No, we don't have that.
Okay. So should Lake County have that? Yes or no, guys? Richard?
Yes.
David?
Yes, and the thing that he mentioned before, the prescription drop box, I think every police department in Lake County has that. So But yes, I think you can only benefit.
Something you could entertain as a sheriff if you get voted into office, possibly?
Yes.
Michael?
I think it's something I could look at, because you have to understand, I'm not in the sheriff's office at this point, so I wouldn't want to make a decision about something, and I'm not as knowledgeable about that particular program.
True, but I appreciate the
But I'm
honesty, but
open.
you'd entertain the idea.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, no question. That's
What do you
one
think,
of the
Nate?
things-
Need exchange?
Yes,
Yeah, Maria?
Yes.
Yeah?
I would have to look into it.
All right. Wally?
Yes, with an addendum to that, they must go into a treatment program and be referred.
I see, I see.
Of course, yes.
Oscar, did I neglect you with that? I mean, you already mentioned that the program is not in existence.
But just I want to make clear about the opioid problem. The opioid, when we're talking about that, not about drugs, that was the question.
Right.
It's not prostitutes, it's people that have, good people that have jobs that were injured, that needed as painkillers, that
Right.
the physician overprescribed, they get hooked on it, and it could be anybody in here with the opioid problem. So let's not get that confused with, somebody that, maybe on other type of drugs, but the opioid problem, it's anybody. It's not like Hollywood that it's a junkie in the street.
Of course not, right. Good clarification, Oscar. Question, should the Sheriff's Department's resources be used at the Gary Airport for federal operations of ICE deportations, and also to block the public from public viewing that? I believe, is Lake County currently involved with that? Lake County Sheriff's Department?
Yes, we're there to provide the safety of, we have to assist the federal government when called upon. That is our duty.
And were you called upon? Was Lake County called upon for that?
Because there was going to be people protesting.
Right.
So we got to make sure it's not just for the agents going in and out, but it's also for the safety of the protesters. We all know, and we see on TV all the time, you have peaceful protesters that are out there, and then you have the other ones that are there to start trouble, to start a riot and get out of control. We are there for the protection of both sides.
Okay. I have a question addressed, starting as with Betty anyway, from the audience member. We've heard trust since kindergarten is important. What are your plans to build that trust? 30 seconds or less, Betty. How are you going to build that trust when you become sheriff?
You develop and go into the schools. That's one thing that's very important. A sheriff must be visible. He must be out in the community, not doing other things, but being out in the communities is very important. And working with the churches, the schools, the mental health, everything is involved with that. The criminal justice system is there to provide those information, but you've got to work with the kids within the school system.
Okay, so I'm thinking the issue of trust and the culture of Lake County in general is what's at stake here and what people are doubting. And I completely doubt it. I don't trust like anybody. I was born and raised in Lake County, just for the record. But still, so how do you address that culture, Richard? How do you change the culture? You got a minute or so. Tell us, how do you change the culture of the Lake County Sheriff's Department and the reputation that comes with it?
First of all, it's a difficult task, but police officers are police officers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when you have the uniform on, or when you have your suit and tie, when you're carrying that badge, you're still a law enforcement officer. You have to portray that image to the community. You have to help people. I mean, if you're a police officer and you're in that community and someone needs help, or you shovel everyone's snow in the community, you're developing a relationship that's going to pass on. So I would say that you have to be a police officer 24/7. You have to gain that trust by doing things. You have to take the action too. And young people are now, sort of rebellious. So it's a matter of getting that relationship together and making sure that if it takes 5 minutes to communicate with that young person, do it. If it's 5 days, do it. So it's just making sure that you spend a lot of time working on that relationship.
Dave, how do you change the culture of Lake County Sheriff's Department, how the people view it?
Yeah, I think that's critically important in today's world, especially in our environment we have today. I think there's two approaches. There's a long-term approach and a short-term approach on how you improve things, because things don't happen overnight. Long-term approach all starts with your hiring process, where you're hiring the most qualified individuals, where you have a hire list that you hire in order, and you have to be within a certain range to be hired. And it takes the politics right out of it. I've experienced that in my time in Cherville. In Cherville, you got to be in the top 10, or you can't be hired. And that makes it easy for me too, because any other department head out here will tell you, you always get a phone call about someone on your list. The first question I always ask, are they in the top 10? If the answer is no, can't help you. It's real simple, but you're hiring the best people. That's the long-term approach. On a short-term approach, it comes down to adopting 21st century model of policing and community policing and training. It starts with training your supervisors, training your officers, so you're training them to interact with the public, and you're getting out there with them in the public doing those things, whether that's a coffee with a cop event, whether that's a community watch meeting, whether that is a community event at a park, but they're interacting with you in a way when it's not dealing with some type of crisis in their life.
So Mike, you're part of this culture right now in Lake County, being a public official. How do you address that when you get questions about your reputation? How do people trust you? You must get a lot of jokes about corruption, right?
Yeah, sure I do. I mean,
How do you address that?
well, at the end of the day, I know I'm sworn to serve the public and to serve the people, not myself. And as far as the sheriffs go, I think you have to empower the people that are around you, and the more you empower them and they empower more other people, whether from a commander or a chief down to a patrolman, and get the proper training that they need, and get the public to clearly understand that through empowerment of these positions and training, the police department will function better, and the public, through the relationship of watching the police department perform better, will be able to be more relaxed about having that kind of relationship. And I think part of that problem is communication. I think that the police department, we need to do a better job going out into the community and talking to all groups about what are their issues. You know, you can't serve someone if you don't know what the issues that they need. You know, you can't just go out and say, well, I'm gonna patrol the area and make it safe. Yeah, you need to make it safe, but you need to be trained properly too, because every area has its own culture and what you're dealing with. And so it's important that you understand that when you're gonna take these things on. And as far as the criticism, I mean, from that standpoint, there's always gonna be some criticism. The issue is, are you focused? Are you ready to move forward and do what needs to be done? And that's what I'm ready to do.
Yeah, but because you guys are running for Lake County Sheriff, it has a reputation and a bad image already. Everybody here is probably looking at you just wondering, what are you going to do? Are you guys going to be honest with us? Are you going to be upfront? Because the past is working against you. Nate, how would you change the culture if you got to be sheriff?
And I think I stated it earlier, as the executive director, the one that's in charge of being a Lake County Sheriff, you're going to have to get out in the community and form a partnership with the community. You're going to have to get out and talk with these churches, these church leaders and pastors, the schools, the school board. You're going to have to hear the parents, the business leaders, what are their issues, their concerns as well, and then unify that and come together to make and have the best police department and the best relationship and transparency between the police department and the citizens that you serve.
All right, Maria?
I think by going by your platform, staying true by it, and sticking to the rules and not breaking the law and not deviating from that, I think that's where we lose a lot of public trust, because we can stand here and talk about how squeaky clean we are or what we're going to do for you all and not do any of it. So I think that's how we gain the trust back, by following through and doing what's right and doing what we're supposed to do from the beginning.
Dan, you have the unique position of being the only Republican, and you said earlier, you only one in 70 years who might be elected, right, Lake County Sheriff. So there is a benefit and a downside to that, because Lake County is heavy Democrat, obviously. What would you do, what could you do to change things?
Exactly. What I would do is I would treat people the way I wanted to be treated. My dad always used to tell me that you're no better than anybody else, and nobody else is ever better than you. So you go out there and you treat people the way you want to be treated. Because going up the ladder is the same, you know, you're going to meet the same people coming back down that ladder. Okay? I would have a open door policy. And being a Republican sheriff, I'll be scrutinized. Because if you don't think in 4 years the Democrats are going to come at me with everything they've got, so I have to keep the office squeaky clean and make sure that the officers know that they're out there to serve the public, and make sure that they uphold the Constitution, that they don't step on anybody's rights, and that they treat people fairly and equitably out there on the streets. So that's what I would do. I would have an open door policy. I would meet with people regularly. I'd go to meetings, church groups, whatever. But I would take it to the people. I'm here to serve you. I'm not looking to be the almighty. You know, people always told me, if you win this election, you know how much power you're going to have? I don't want the power. I can care less about the power. I can care less about politics. All I want to do is the job, plain and simple. Okay? I love police work. Police work was the first job, when I got this job, it was the first time that I could literally say that I never minded getting up in the morning and going to work. And I loved it. I loved putting a uniform on. I didn't care. I got punished and said, "Oh no, you're no longer going to be in civilian clothes. We're going to put you in Class A uniforms." And we had to wear them. Didn't
All right.
bother me. It
All right.
saved me on my cleaning bill.
Oscar, how long have you been in office now?
I've been in office 6 months, and since I took office, I think I've shown to everybody that I don't leave.
Is the
from
culture
behind a desk.
changing?
Yeah, I think it is. We see a lot of bad images about police officers because that sells news, but there's a lot of good police officers. I don't lead from behind a desk. I'm out on the field all the time. Either I'm backing my guys up, I'm out in the community, I go to McDonald's, I wear my uniform, my brown and tan uniform every single day. That's what I wear, that's who I am, and I'm proud of it. And when I'm out there having coffee with the citizens, I get involved with the churches, as with the Lake County Sheriff's Department, getting individuals and children to get involved in our youth camp that's coming up, and that's gonna be a self-esteem building, a mentoring program. And I tell every single one of my officers, I expect the same, you lead by example. I tell them that it's okay if they go to the ballpark to see their kid play. It's okay if they're patrolling and they're not backed up in calls and time permits to get out there at the parks, play with the kids, shoot some basketball, play some baseball, play catch.
So Oscar, when you ran against former Sheriff Bunsich, you always campaigned of changing the culture of the office. Have you changed that culture in 6 months, at least to the degree you could in 6 months?
Absolutely. We're doing as much as we can in the 6 months that we have, among so many other things. The officers are out in the community. They are out making stops at businesses, engaging individuals.
And is politics being extracted from the office? That's the biggest complaint I'm guessing from a lot of residents.
Yes. When you look at it, you have candidates that were candidates in the past that are on my command staff. You have officers that have relatives that is running for sheriff.
Is it possible to all the candidates, and I'll get to you, Betty, in a second, is it possible to remove politics from this office? Is that even a possibility?
Yes. You know why? Because I'm passionate about what I do. I love my job. That's all I want to do.
I think John Bunsich loved his job too.
Well, no. It was the power he loved. It was the power.
Everybody loves the job of being a sheriff. That's a given.
Right, but see, I'm a working sheriff. I'm out on the road. And I look forward to this election process to be over so we can fully concentrate on the Sheriff's Department. We've done a lot, and that's what it's about. I have my officers all going, I spoke earlier, through diversity training. It's not just about the color of your skin, it's about culture. Different cultures react differently with the police department. So I think that's important as well.
Betty, you want to pipe in?
Sure.
I mean, that was a silly question. Of course Betty wants to pipe in. I mean, you want to address this question. You have plans? Plans. A platform to address how to change the culture, reputation of Lake County Sheriff's Department.
The Sheriff's Department, we know the history of this county where a lot of indictments has occurred. That's history, okay? The Sheriff's Department, the last one went to prison. We understand that. Now, Oscar's been there for 6 months, and now the Sheriff's Department is the example of epitome that he's not telling the whole truth to the public, okay? The thing is, he's doing that drug bust or being there, but he can't testify in federal court. That's something he has to address. If you can't testify in federal court, why are you doing the drug bust? And you did 2 drug busts in 15 years. I want to know what it is that you've done in the past 14 years. I know what you've done. Oscar, I've known you for 20 years. I've been in that county for a long time. I think that part about the integrity, the honesty, telling the people the truth. A lot of politicians haven't done that, and yes, there are a lot of them in jail. I've been there for 33 years. I've seen a lot.
So Betty, generally speaking, do you think bringing up and slinging mud at this forum is the best route to get you votes? I don't know if it is or not. I'm not an elected politician at all, and I don't want to be for these reasons right here.
You should tell the truth.
All right.
I got a rebuttal on this because that's slanderous. That's not true. That I can't testify in federal court. You're part of the media. Please research that with the prosecutors, with the AUSA. I could testify. I testified in federal and state court and have gotten convictions. I'm proud of what I do. So we all know her intention and what she's doing and why she's in the race. And we can see her unprofessionalism right now. So that's slanderous. So I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to get involved in this type of bickering that she's doing here, but when you're lying and making up something, now I gotta speak up.
You can ask her. You should speak up. I think it's important to tell the truth. I mean, you got your supporters here. Half of the audience is your supporter.
Okay, so I think that, we're going to change gears again.
Yeah, ask me a question.
I think we know that there was a backlog of the rape kit backlog. That was a big issue in the news recently.
Can I respond to that
I'm so
question?
sorry, well, I thought you addressed that already.
Yeah, right, and the question again,
Changing the culture of Lake County Sheriff's
you gotta
Department.
change the
This is the
culture.
culture right here.
Yeah.
Can you change this?
yeah, we can change the culture by first of all starting an athletic league. That's what saved me, boxing. I mean, East Chicago would fight Gary would fight Joliet. That's one thing. Start a police cadet program. Whether anybody wins, any of us win this election, one will win, regardless. Police cadet program should be started. A chaplain's course should be reinstituted so the chaplains and the ministers and the priests can talk to his ministry and can also talk to the children. The athletic league, of course, I mentioned that before, and letters to the school. Letters to the school and then go to the parents. In other words, an incident that happens at the school, it goes to the police, it also goes to the parents. It spinaches out through verbal battle, you might say, verbal communication. That's it.
That's it. I love that. All right. So we'll get back to the rape kit issue that was in the news recently. A backlog in Lake County. It's pretty shameful, actually. How many of you were aware of it before you read it in the news? Is that common knowledge? It was. What could have been done or should have been done? One of the audience members wants to know what could you have done to address that. Who's at fault? Who's to be blamed for
They
that?
need to follow up on it.
Maria?
The supervisors, why didn't they check as to what their detectives were doing and supervise them for that? They should be following up. We have to constantly police ourselves, whether we like it or not. We have to constantly do that. That's why we have so many issues, because one doesn't know what the other one's doing. We're not checking to see what our officers are doing or our detective. Not that they're incompetent or they can't do it, but just to make sure that they are doing it.
Michael, is this a black eye in Lake County, this other recent issue with the rape kit backlog?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the whole issue of what happened to victims of that particular crime, and the fact that it's not been addressed in a proper manner, there's no excuse for it. And I think a lot of times people get too complacent because they feel like the politics in the sheriff's office allows them to do whatever the hell they want to do. And that's the reason why I always take the politics out of every office I get. I ask the voters for the vote. After that, all I ask the employees to do is their job. And I would say the same thing to the police officer. Do your job, make it a priority to serve the public. And if you haven't done it, then you disrespected what you're supposed to be doing.
Dave, are you aware of the rape kit backlog in the county?
Yes, I was aware recently because some of those discussions had occurred here in the last few months from the prosecutor
Right.
with the chiefs. So I was aware of that. Obviously, I think that comes down strictly to a leadership issue. It's all about leadership.
Yep.
But the point is, when you have cases and you end up doing a sexual assault kit and it's put in a refrigerator somewhere, someone has to have the leadership to be following up on those cases to make sure they're being sent in. And obviously that wasn't being done in a lot of these cases.
Richard, what do you think? Are you aware of it?
Leadership and accountability, yes, I was aware of it, but how can that happen with accountability? Because each time that should have been logged in, someone should have been checking each one of them. What's the process? How are we progressing on this case? There is no way with the proper leadership and the proper accountability, this will never happen. That's like high value. That's unacceptable.
Maria, you mentioned black eyes earlier, and that was a good line, I think, for Lake County. Lake County is full of black eyes, so many. Is this another one for the county?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, another thing that happens is that people are switched around so often, well, transferred so often that they leave those cases and they just fall off. Nobody ever follows up on them. I know, I handle property management and evidence, and that's exactly what happens. They get transferred or they move on, and then what happens to the case? It just stays there. Nobody ever checks on it. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, we're running down on time, as you guys all know, looking at your watches, I'm sure. And I've been in your seats, and I know how it is to get the hell out of here, so that's fine. I'll be in charge of that. I do have a couple other questions. Oscar, 1 second for you, please. I have a list of questions from people in the audience. I mean, more than 20 questions here. So I would suggest, I'm not going to be able to get to them, obviously, Ask these people. They want your attention now. They may not want your attention May 9th,
Jerry, can
but
I
they want your
respond to
attention
that
now, so I
question?
suggest you contact them.
Can I respond to the last question about the rape kits, because it's important to this community to know, this problem is going on since 1976. I was aware of it then, when the rape kits placed in a safe at the Gary Police Department, because we had nowhere to go. And it's still gonna be a problem, because there's not sufficient manpower or labs to process them. You've got thousands of rape kits, and the state police does not have the facilities or the manpower to make it court approval.
All right.
Yes, this is important. It's not a Lake County Sheriff's Department issue, it's a Lake
I
County.
didn't say it was.
Right.
No.
Lake County issue.
course.
And one of the things is that there has been reform, though. Things have changed. From now on, if you have a victim of sexual assault, the officer has 72 hours. Within 72 hours, he has to pick up that evidence, that swab. And within 30 days, he must take that to the Indiana State Police. Now, these are victims that come out, that you have other victims that are anonymous. So with those, you can't, what you do, because they don't want to file charges or go any further, what we do with those is you still collect that swab. You still, if it's a case of sexual assault, and we hold on to it for a year, 365 days, we hold on to that, and we can, what we're doing now is testing anything 10 years ago. Anything that's 10 years, anything prior to that, we won't test. But for those that may have somebody out there that was a victim of sexual assault that is past the 10 years, you can go to Fairhaven and request, if you request to get that tested, that will.
Okay. So we're gonna, a couple minutes left, we're gonna do a quick lightning round on some of these candidates, quick answers if you would. This is from the audience again. If elected, name your top 2 priorities. We don't want elaboration, just give me your top 2 priorities. Whoever's got it in your head, pop it out.
Transparency and accountability.
Okay, Dave?
Opiates and image.
Michael?
Being able to work with the existing staff and having a better image for the sheriff's department.
Okay, Nate?
Transparency and accountability.
All right, Maria?
Nepotism and favoritism.
Gotcha. Dan?
Accountability and transparency.
Oscar?
The Department of Justice oversight in our jail that's costing millions and millions of dollars on taxpayers' money, and the drug opioid problem.
That's your 2 top priorities, correct? Wally?
Increase communication with the Board of Commissioners and appoint a chief of police through employment, human resource process.
Betty, 2
Budget and
priorities.
accountability,
What was the first one?
budget and
Budget and accountability. Okay, last question for you guys. Just to end on a personal note, give me your biggest regret in life. Biggest regret you regret to this day. Richard?
I waited 25 years before I got married.
Damn, that's a long 45 years, Richard. Dave, biggest regret, be honest with the people.
Well, probably not popular here, but the Cubs won the World Series.
You mean you're mad about that?
Yeah.
Oh. All right. Michael, you got a regret, biggest regret?
That wasn't a priest.
Say again?
That wasn't a priest.
That you were not a priest. Michael says he's not a priest. Interesting answer. Nate, biggest regret in life?
Not being a fireman.
Not being a fireman. Maria, you got a regret?
Oh, not pursuing my music.
Not pursuing your music.
Not being a
Gotcha.
rock star.
All right. Dan?
Not being a police officer long enough.
Really?
Yeah, because after leaving the mills, what I did was I was 33 years old when I hired on.
I see.
I wish I was younger, so
I
I
see.
had a longer career.
Now, the last 3 have more time to think about this, so it's not fair. Granted, but still, Oscar, biggest regret in life?
You know what, I've been blessed in my life for everything. I believe everything happens for a reason, and if there's anything that happened that I feel may be regretful, I just feel that God had a plan for it, and that's the way I look at it in life.
All right. Wally, you got a biggest regret?
I regret not hitting 6 numbers on the lottery.
We all have that regret, Dave. Well, I get that. Betty, one regret in your life?
You know what, I don't have any.
No regrets?
Not at all.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, good for Betty. So I guess we should wrap it up. I have other questions. Again, I'm going to write about this in my column. I'll address some of these questions with these candidates in my column. I suggest you guys contact these candidates with some of these great questions that I couldn't ask tonight. Other than that, thanks for coming out. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Tom.
All right, people, thank you very much on behalf of SPIA, School of Public Environmental Affairs, CURE, Center for Urban and Regional Excellence. This was brought to you so that we can have a better society and a well-informed society. Because of that, I want you just for a minute, I'm going to make an announcement that is going to hopefully help our society. I'm also running. I am. People, I'm running. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to run effective June 25th to Indianapolis to make a difference on civic education. So June 25th, I'm going to run from Gary to Indianapolis. And keep your eyes open, please, because we need people like you to pay attention about our civic responsibility. I hope to end in Indianapolis July 4th. It's a symbolic gesture so that basically it brings civic awareness to our whole entire state. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you.